Hey everybody, Mountain Grandma here. Today I'm making relish, and this is sweet pickled relish. Best pickled relish recipe ever. And I'm going to share this with you, and I'm also going to show you. This came out of the book, Country Wisdom Know-How. If you don't have the book, you might want to think about getting it because it's full of great stuff, including this recipe. Now, we're going to start by cutting up cucumbers, so let's go ahead and get to it. All right, now I'm dicing these cucumbers up in, like a size you'd expect to have in relish. So kind of dicing, not just chopping, but I need 4 cups of these. I'm actually doing 2 batches. I'm going to do one batch that's not spicy and one batch that is spicy with jalapenos. Here's my 4 cups. So we'll move on to the next one. All right, once you've got your 4 cups, add them to a big bowl, because you're going to need everything in this bowl after you get it all cut up and, put together. And then I'm going to work on the bell peppers. Now, the recipe called for 1 red, 1 green. I'm doubling the recipe, and I have a red one, a yellow one, and a half of a green one. So I'm going to make that work, and I'm going to get these chopped up, and I'll be back with you. All right, I want to do 2 batches, and I only have half a bell pepper, but these are really big bell peppers. So my plan is I'm going to kind of mix together the red and yellow and probably some green and yellow too, because I think what the intention is when it says 2 bell peppers is probably 2 cups. So I'm going to add 2 cups, and then in my second batch of relish, I'm going to add in jalapeno peppers. So I'm going to have like a spicy batch of relish and a regular batch of relish. All right, so here's 1 cup. And we'll get some of the green in here. I do want to save some green for the other batch. That's 2 cups. And then the other one might have more onion in it too, just to kind of account for the difference. But here we go. All right, next thing I need to cut up is 1 whole onion. So I'm gonna get this guy cut up and I'll be back with you. All right. There's 2nd cup. So you need 2 cups of onions. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and get this all mixed up. What we have here is 2 cups of bell peppers, a combination of red, yellow, and green. And we've got 4 cups of chopped cucumbers. And we've got 2 cups of chopped onion. I've got kosher salt here. It called for pickling salt, but kosher salt's a good substitute. So is plain sea salt. And I'm going to be adding and sprinkling over 1/4 of a cup of that kosher salt. Kind of stir this around. The next thing I'm going to do is pour some cold water over the top of this. I'll add a little more because you want it completely covered. There we go. I might even drop a couple ice cubes in there just to make sure it stays nice and cold. And I'm going to let this sit for 2 hours. All right, now in this big pot, I have 3½ cups of sugar. And to this, I'm going to add a tablespoon of celery seed and a tablespoon of mustard seed. And then I'm also going to be adding 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. Over here on the stove, I have this brine heating up. I'm waiting for it to get to a boil. I've also got... This water is already hot. It'll be moved over to the main burner when I've got my jars submerged in there. And I have my jars in the oven. I like to put them in the oven, set it at 200 degrees, and then I can pull that whole pan out when I'm ready to fill them. All right, now you want to pour out your vegetables and you want to drain them and make sure you've pressed all of the water out. We're going to heat this back up to simmering, and then we're going to let it simmer for 10 minutes. All right, it's been 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and pull my jars, my clean sterilized jars, out of the oven and start getting them filled up to put into the canner. I just want to say, I have tried heating my jars a couple different ways, and heating them in the oven is by far my favorite way because I pull them out, they're all nice and warm, I'm not digging them out of hot water or anything like that, and it just, if I make a mess, it's right there on the cookie sheet and it's easier to clean up than like my countertop. So as I'm filling these, I'm trying to make sure I got a good, like, inch-ish, half inch to inch of headspace, whatever your distance is there of like where the rings are for you to put the lid on. That's how I measure it, just kind of right there. So as I'm filling it, I do that, and then I'm making sure I've got them good and full with just enough juice in there so that they're not all gapped out later. And then I'm taking my knife and just making sure that there's no air bubbles that are down in there on all of these. And then lastly, well, almost lastly, I'm getting the vinegar and getting a clean paper towel and just cleaning the edge of those. This is super important. You don't want any sticky stuff on the tops of your jars because it could impact your seal. So make sure that you clean those tops really well. And then after they're good and cleaned and you feel good about that, then you can go ahead and get your lids on there. And then when you're putting the rings on there, you want to make sure that you just hand tighten the rings. And remember, these are like hot jars, so you'll see me kind of delicately touching them because they are warm. Oh, got the mitt. And then once these are all, hand tightened lids are on there, then we can go ahead and submerge them into the water pot. And the water's hot, the jars are hot, nothing to, break or anything like that. So you're in a good place. And for water bath canning, you do want to make sure that the jars are at least 1 inch to 2 inches below the water, because as your water bath canning and the water's boiling, the water boils down. So that's important. Now, here I've got the jars in there. Wait till the water's boiling, and then you've got to boil them for 10 minutes. And then here they are. Here's the final version. I've got the H is on the ones that are spicy. I guess I could have put an S, but H for hot. And then the regular.